Yes, there is so much to update you all on with regard to Fani Willis. I'm going to try to pack it all into one video. And I am going to say the quiet part out loud at the end of this video since nobody else seems to be willing to do that. So let me start with an update really quick. Last week on Thursday, Fani Willis did not show up for her much anticipated appearance in front of a Georgia Senate committee to discuss ethics. There were some hints right beforehand, as I discussed in my last video, that she was not going to show up, and in fact, she did not. I watched the beginning of it, of the actual committee hearing, and they said that there was a conflict with her counsel's schedule, and so that they are anticipating that she is going to now testify mid-December, although I don't think we have an official date on that yet. Do I think that the average person would get treated this way if they were being investigated and questioned by a Georgia Senate committee? Of course not. Is she getting special treatment? Clearly. But I do hope that they are going to finally hold her feet to the fire at some point and make her answer for all the things that have gone down. So we'll wait and see mid-December on that. The second thing, the bigger thing that happened this past week was Friday. First, we saw Judge McAfee actually dismiss a few more counts in this pending criminal prosecution of the president and his co-defendants. It's not gone, but he has narrowed it. His reasoning for dismissing some of these appears to be that he didn't think that these were criminal counts that could be handled in a state arena, that they belonged potentially in a federal arena. So those were dismissed little by little. The prosecution's getting whittled down because other charges were dismissed in the past as well. So now let's talk about the big kahuna in the room. And that is what is going to happen with regard to a prosecutor going forward on the case. Because we know in mid-September, the Georgia Supreme Court said, we are not going to overturn the Court of Appeals decision that Fani Willis and her office are completely disqualified from prosecuting the president at this point. We were waiting to see what the Prosecuting Attorneys Council and its director, Pete Skandalakis, were going to do. What we learned was that nobody wants this prosecution in the entire state of Georgia. He issued a statement, which actually I have a lot of respect for. I thought it was well crafted and his reasoning is good. So he has decided to appoint himself temporarily as the prosecutor of this case. Now, does that mean he's about to, go full force? No. What he said was that the window of time that Judge McAfee gave him to decide who to assign the case to and what to do with the case was not enough because it is such a broad case. So he said, look, nobody else wants it. I'm going to read directly from what he says. He notes that he had an inability to secure another conflict prosecutor to assume responsibility for the case. He did contact some folks, but each declined the appointment. He then goes on later in the statement to say that the first transfer of materials to his office from Fani Willis's office occurred on October 29th, 2025, where 101 banker boxes were delivered on this investigation. Then on November 6th, he got an 8 terabyte hard drive containing the complete investigative file. So what he is saying is, look, I'm not in a position yet to fully decide what should be done. And I completely respect that. He needs to look through all of this stuff. But let's talk about the little things that are going unsaid at this point in time in this statement. Number one, the transfer of materials first happened on October 29. Well, we knew all the way back in mid-September that Fani was done prosecuting this case, and Fani Willis knew it too. So the question becomes, why does it take 6 weeks to transfer materials over to the PAC? I'm not saying it would have happened overnight, but Fani Willis put him in a terrible position by not even providing information to him until the end of October. And we all know, based on her history, that she doesn't like to give up information that she's required to give up. We've seen it in open records requests and indeed in subpoenas to appear to testify. So she really put Pete Skandalakis at the PAC behind the 8 ball by taking so long to even get this stuff to him. All right, now let's talk about what no one else is talking about. And that's, like I said, the quiet stuff that nobody wants to say out loud. Why doesn't another prosecutor in Georgia want to take this case? Well, first, let me play this little clip that came just from last month. This is a local news reporter talking to Fani Willis, he's from WSB, about why she thought the Supreme Court didn't overturn the Court of Appeals when they disqualified her from prosecuting. Listen to this.
I think you have both prosecutors, citizens, and even judges that are afraid right now for good reason, and so it didn't surprise me. There's many members of that Supreme Court I'm very fond of, but they're human beings. They have families, and I'm sure they were afraid to do anything other than that.
Yep, you heard it right from the horse's mouth. She is saying that the reason the Georgia Supreme Court did not take up the appeal on her being disqualified was because they were afraid. She called them cowards, not because they had a legitimate legal reason for not taking up this case. It was because they were cowards. But what's even more interesting about that little clip is that she also mentions prosecutors. So now, after Friday, we know that no prosecutor in the state of Georgia was willing to take this case. It gets real interesting, doesn't it? Because you have to ask yourself, why is it that none of the other, at least the other blue team prosecutors in Metro Atlanta, are running to a microphone and saying, I'll take on this case. I'll be the hero now that our friend Fani Willis has so unjustly been removed from this case. Nope, they're all just kind of disappearing into the bushes and, we hear crickets, right? Let's say the quiet part out loud. That's because they know that this prosecution is total garbage. Think about it. We know why the red prosecutors that, in Georgia don't want this. I mean, even looking at them from their very worst, they love the president and they don't want to see him prosecuted, so they're not touching it, all right? But the blue team prosecutors in Gwinnett County, in DeKalb County, in Cobb County, that are right here in Metro Atlanta, why aren't they coming to Fani Willis's aid? If it is true that the president and his co-defendants did all the things that Fani Willis alleged in the indictment, if it is true that they committed criminal acts in an attempt to overturn a national election, that should be prosecuted. Every human being in America should think that should be prosecuted. It goes to the very basis of our beliefs as Americans that our vote is sacred and a bunch of people shouldn't be messing with that, okay? So if those allegations are true, someone should come to the forefront and say, I am not going to let this happen. We know that district attorneys all take the same oath. It's right here. It says that they are going to faithfully and impartially and without fear, favor, or affection, discharge their duties as district attorney. So I ask you, why aren't they coming to her aid? And, of course they're going to say, oh, I'm too busy. Well, I thought justice was supposed to be blind. Justice isn't about finances or being too busy or not wanting to be uncomfortable. It's about doing the right thing. Or is it possible that maybe prosecutors aren't always doing the right thing? That's a story for another day. But the question then becomes, what about all the investigation? I mean, it's already been done, right? We have $1 million worth of investigation already done by Nathan Wade and his other two special prosecutors. Surely they have put together careful, thought out evidence on what happened in this RICO case before they indicted it, right? So it should all be ready to go. Hell, we know they got 101 banker boxes and a terabyte drive already packed up and ready to go. So why aren't any of the blue team prosecutors coming to her rescue? For example, let's take Sonia Allen in Cobb County. Yeah, she worked at the DA's office, but she didn't work on that case, and she doesn't work there anymore. There's nothing to say that she couldn't take over this case. And my goodness, we know she intimately knows Nathan Wade because she hired him to do a fake investigation of the Cobb jail when so many people were unalived, and gave him tens of thousands of dollars. And she even used him to help interview her new ADAs back in January. Why isn't she standing up? Also, we know she got the time, right? Because she found the time to prosecute Mick Patel, even though she knew he was innocent. We know that her right-hand man, Jesse Evans, has plenty of time on his hands. He goes out and does all sorts of speeches all the time. He's not handling a whole bunch of major cases in Cobb County. And we know he loves the spotlight because he showed up right away when he thought he was going to be famous keeping Mick Patel in jail. And then, of course, disappeared when they had to dismiss the case. So many questions. Why doesn't Fani have any of her friends coming to help her out? We know Fani gave Sonia Allen money for her campaign. Why so many crickets, Fani? Why doesn't anybody want to help you? Inquiring minds want to know.